Hey guys, it's Alicia. Long time no see. So 3 years ago, I filmed my first video on unilateral hearing loss. Um, it was probably the hardest thing that I ever made, speaking up about something publicly like that. And I wanted to make a more updated version. Um, as I said, it's been 3 years. A lot's changed. I've changed. Um, and I think there's a lot more that I can talk about now, especially along the lines of not doing exactly what I'm doing now, but advocacy for yourself, self advocacy, and independence. Um, so, yeah, that is what we are going to discuss today. So let's get into it, shall we? So, first things first, what is unilateral hearing loss? Unilateral hearing loss is when you are deaf in one ear. So, and that has a range from mild all the way to profoundly deaf in one ear. And it can be your right, it can be your left. For me personally, I was born with my hearing loss, but I didn't find out until I was around 9, 10 years old. And as a 10-year-old, to be told that you aren't, I guess, normal is hard to hear. And it's not easy to be told that, like, you're different and you're going to need help to accommodate it. And I was kind of just like thrown under the bus in a way of, now go and figure out this thing that you've had since you were little, like birth, but you know nothing about it, and you're 10 years old and all you want is to fit in. And that's really difficult to hear. Yeah. Okay, moving on. That is what unilateral hearing loss is. So, with that in mind, we have unilateral hearing loss. Now, what struggles that does that cause? Because I think a lot of people assume that you have one good ear, so everything's fine, right? There's nothing wrong. Everything's okay. You can still live a normal, everyday life. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but that isn't true. There are struggles that come with unilateral hearing loss. Just to list a few things, one of them is you don't have echolocation. Now, I've described this in many videos before, but echolocation is being able to track where a sound is coming from. I cannot do that. If someone talks to me, like calls my name, I will look in every direction to figure out where they are, but I will not find them until the last try. So if I need to look in front of me, behind me, my right, my left, I will not get it right until the very last try. So if they're talking to me from my left, that'll be the last place I look. Another challenge that comes with it is overstimulation. And I've heard a lot of others with unilateral hearing loss discuss this. And I haven't talked about it much on my channel. But being in loud environments for a long period of time can get very overstimulating, and it can be too much for the senses that you kind of just break down. It kind of falls into the same line of hearing fatigue, where you're listening for too long and you just get really exhausted. It falls under the same line, but it's a bit different because it causes, for me, immense irritation, and I can kind of just like, I need dead silence. I don't want any noise around me or anything. And the way I've coped with that is turning on white noise or just putting in an earplug, only one, and just chilling for a little bit. No screens, no nothing. Turn off the lights and just breathe, because my brain needs to just decompress and calm down. That's how I handle the overstimulation. As for no echolocation, the way I handle that is just asking people to not call for me. Come and find me, because I will not hear you otherwise. These next two are kind of connected. With the pandemic came masks, and in a similar vein, being in a dark room, it's really difficult to track and hear sound, because you lose that visual key, right? So it's hard to know where a voice is coming from, as I was talking about echolocation, right? So it makes it really difficult to track. And in the same vein, masks, I lose the ability to see what people are saying, like lip reading. I can't do that with the masks on. Similar kind of, but not really. And that's difficult to, with the pandemic, it was really difficult. I finished high school during the pandemic, and it was hard to hear with the masks. I ended up asking teachers to wear a visor, a clear face protector instead, as it just worked better, along with my FM system, which we'll get there. I'll talk about resources. Yeah, so that is that. Oh, and multitasking. The ability to listen and take notes, just going to use school as the example here, is not easy. It's not easy to be looking at the notes on the board and then having to write them down, but also your teacher is lecturing about the said notes at the same time. That's too much for my brain. I can't do it. And how I handle that, or have handled it in the past, is I ask the notes ahead of time, so I have them in front of me and I can focus on what the teacher is saying. With my college right now, the courses are all online, so I use a, gotta get this right, speech to text app in order to get everything that the teacher is saying. And they provide the notes through PowerPoints, so I don't need to worry so much about that aspect. And those are just a couple of the struggles that I face. Moving on to the next topic. All right, mental health. This is tricky. Because there's something about unilateral hearing loss that feels super isolating. And I think, for me at least, it's because I don't feel a sense of community, if that makes sense. I do now, but before it would kind of feel like I'm in two worlds, you know what I mean? There's the deaf community and there's the hearing community, and really I'm in middle. I'm a bit of both. There isn't that sense that I'm a part of either of those communities, right? Because bilateral hearing loss is the more common form of hearing loss. And that is much different than unilateral hearing loss. Whereas the hearing community, there's obviously some differences there, as they can fully hear. They don't need these accommodations that I require in some respects, and don't have the same challenges, right? Like, that is just an obvious difference. Of course, finding that community was a bit tricky. Online, honestly, technology and social media is the easiest way to find that community. And I did find people who were like me, and that's how I've grown to be more okay with my hearing loss. It's still like, I think sometimes I still feel kind of down on myself, and like it is the end of the world, depending on this day. And it's not easy. And I struggle with anxiety, so there's a lot that goes on there. Yeah, I think that's what I have to say there. It's not easy to not completely fit in and to feel kind of socially isolated. I've always struggled with making friends and stuff. I don't think or know if that's because of my hearing loss. But yeah, got really real for a second there. Oh gosh. Let's talk about those resources I mentioned, right? So, options for unilateral hearing loss that I've been told of are a cross hearing aid, which I wear. Hang on, I'm actually gonna grab mine. For you guys, that was like 1 second. For me, that was like 10. Isn't that fun? Okay, so as I said, I wear a cross hearing aid. I'll just show you one of them. So here is the hearing aid. Pretty much, I wear 2 hearing aids, right? So the one in my right ear is a microphone. It picks up all the sound. And then the one in my left ear is a receiver. The noise travels from this hearing aid to the left side. So I hear what the sound is. It's not a perfect system, but it works 90% of the time, maybe less. So just to show off the hearing aid a bit more, this is what it is. So you have your little volume button right here to turn, turn down the frequency. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really do, it doesn't amplify. And then you have the battery compartment. It doesn't have a battery in it because I haven't been wearing them as often due to my online classes. And then this is the part that goes in your ear. So I don't know how well I can show this, but this part sits behind the ear, and then this part goes in the ear like this, and it just sort of sits, and it basically becomes invisible, right? Like, you can't tell that I'm really wearing anything. I mean, you kind of can, but not really. So that's the hearing aid. Another option is a cochlear implant, and that is a surgery where they put, it's a little device that goes on the bone behind your ear. I don't know as much about those, so I'm not going to speak on them for too long, but that is also another resource if you so wish. There's mixed reviews about them from what I've heard. And then the other option, as I mentioned before, is an FM system. So I don't have one to show, but an FM system, it kind of looks like a really mini phone, except the only difference is it doesn't have a home button. It has a mute button. And pretty much the FM, depending on what type of FM system you have, the one I used, connects to the hearing aid, and your teacher wears it so that you can hear what they're saying, and it's more of a personal FM. You can also just have like a large speaker system for the classroom where the teacher wears a microphone and there's a speaker at the back of the room so that it just amplifies her voice for the whole class. That is another option for an FM. So yeah, just to help amplify the teacher's voice. If anything, the surround sound version does a lot because 1, the teacher doesn't have to yell, and 2, it helps those with disabilities in the class. So it's like a win-win thing with that setup. Excuse me. So yeah, that's that one. Okay, this is a topic I did not cover in the first video, and I wanted to bring it up today. It's something that's come up in my schooling recently, and I also talked about it recently on my page, link down below. Casual promo. But self-advocacy, it's not something I've ever discussed, as it's a skill that's sort of become second nature for me. Being able to speak up for myself and say what I need when I need to, right? That's a skill that my mom made sure I knew how to do that I had that voice, and I felt comfortable doing so. Now, I want you to picture this. Me, very shy, timid 10-year-old girl, finding out she's deaf, to now, where I'm able to speak up online about my hearing loss. That's a drastic change. And I'm going to say this now, it does not happen overnight, okay? If you're a parent and you're wanting to instill this type of thing into your child, it's not going to happen overnight, and you can't expect that of them. When I was 10, I didn't even want to talk about my hearing loss pretty much. I wanted to be normal for like 2 years. That is how I felt. I just wanted to be the average student. I didn't want to have to deal with hearing loss. So I kind of hid it. And then after a while, I started to get curious. I started noticing things. I started to feel different. So I wore my hearing aids to school and I started asking questions. I'm struggling to hear my teacher in class. What do I do? I'm getting headaches every day after school, every day during school because our class is so noisy. What do I do? I started asking, and my mom would help me with the answers so that I could talk to my teacher and be like, these are struggles that I'm facing. This is what I need you to do for me. So we'll go to the note-taking example. I really struggle to multitask when you're speaking and there's notes on the board. It's hard for me to listen and write at the same time. Do you think you could provide the notes for me? Is that something that we can do? And the teacher normally says yes. So I'm able to do that. Whoopsie. Now, that skill came through a very long process of, first of all, learning about my hearing loss, learning about what I live with on a day-to-day basis, understanding it, right? And then secondly came recognizing, where do my struggles lie? What am I truly struggling with in my school, right? Where are these challenges coming from? And then it was learning how to communicate those needs to my teacher in a way that is, one, respectful, polite, and also keeps in mind that if the teacher says no, that might not be because they are truly ableist or discriminatory. It might just be because they don't have the knowledge or the understanding to help. And you cannot blame them for that. That isn't their fault. That's just not their experience, right? That's not something they grew up with. That's not something they lived with. So they're not able to fully comprehend that. And you need to be respectful of that. And you need to help them learn. So you have to teach them that, right? Now, as I said, this is not a skill that happens overnight. It's okay if you're a parent and you're hearing this right now, it's okay if your child doesn't want to talk about it. Give them that space. Show them that love, compassion, empathy. Let them know that they can be open with you and they can share the struggles they have. Let them know that. Let them know you're there. And if you're listening and you are deaf in one ear and you're wanting to learn how to have these skills, you've got this. I believe in you. Find others like you who deal with unilateral hearing loss. Watch my YouTube channel if that helps you. You don't have to, of course. I'm not going to force you to do that. But find others who are in your same position and can help you advocate for yourself and can teach you about your disability so that you can get to a point where you're able to stand up and say, hey, you're on the wrong side of my head. Can you move to my left side so that I can hear you properly? Or can you stand in front of me, please, so I can read your lips whilst we're talking here? Would that be okay? Thanks. Amazing. Great. Just to be able to do those really simple skills. Or for me during college right now, hey, teacher, I know we're doing a class, but do you think you could turn on closed captioning for me so that I can see what everyone's saying? Just to be able to follow along a bit better. Things like that, right? Really simple things. And it doesn't require too much explanation because you've already explained it in those really short, quick sentences. It takes courage. It takes strength to be able to do that. And it's not easy, okay? It was not a short journey. Even to this day, I am still learning to be able to fully advocate for myself as my position changes, right? From going to student to professional in a position of some sort, right? That's a really different role. And the advocacy does change. And it also comes to okay, so what accommodations am I now going to need? Is there going to be a little bit of a difference here? What new things will I require? And a lot of that comes with being in the position, and you'll learn as you go. You know what I mean? You just learn every day, self-monitor, is a word I learned today. Just monitoring yourself and checking in, like, oh, that was difficult here. For example, how I found out that masks are difficult for me, I was in a Dollarama and I was paying for something and I couldn't hear the cashier. And I realized it's the mask. This was never an issue before, and now it is. This is because of the masks, and this is going to be a challenge in school. So we need to do something about that. It was right before the school year as well. So it's things like that that help you to advocate for yourself, okay? So this is a long video. I don't know how different it is to the first one, but I hope it helps. And if you are a person out there with unilateral hearing loss, you're loved and you're not alone. There are people out there who understand where you're coming from, who get it, and are going through a lot of the same struggles that you are. And I promise you, you're not alone. And you know what? Not even directing that just at unilateral hearing loss. Any disorder, disability, whatever you want to call it, you're not alone. There are others out there who know where you're coming from and can help. And I promise you, it's not easy, but you will get by. A lot of this discrimination people face is just because they don't understand and they haven't had that experience. And you can't blame them for that, as it hasn't been their experience. So it's helping them to learn these things and helping them to gain that compassion and that knowledge so that they can help others when they meet someone with a disorder, such as unilateral hearing loss or dyslexia or dysgraphia, dyscalculia, anything, blindness, you name it. They need to be talked about. Awareness is required. And not one person can do that alone. So, yeah, sorry, just a little rant. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my unilateral hearing loss, or what did I call it? I called it single-sided hearing loss, didn't I? Revamp, maybe? Yeah, revamp. So, yes, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.